Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation on Linux with Shad PS4. Specifically, if you are on Linux, Shad PS4 just got a lot easier to obtain and install. It is now available on FlatHub and verified. At the time of filming, the latest version on FlatHub is version 0.5.0, and if you are on Linux, this may be the way to go, considering when they push an update, you'll automatically receive it, or at least be notified of it through FlatHub. Now, if you are on Linux and you've never heard of FlatHub, I would be surprised. If you are on Linux and you don't use FlatHub, I wouldn't be surprised. FlatHub seems very divisive in the Linux community. Some people love it and some people hate it. I, for one, love it. I love the containerized approach. I like that it's distro agnostic. It doesn't really matter what distro you have, FlatHub is probably going to work. And I like the fact that it just makes things a heck of a lot easier all in one place. And speaking about stuff all in one place, next up we're talking about the Video Game History Foundation. And it seems that the Video Game History Foundation's digital library launches on January 30th. And it is open to the public then. Unfortunately, I haven't been behind closed doors to see it in action yet. I'm very curious to see how it's going to be implemented, how it works, and what material is going to be on there. But I am very excited about this one. Like everything we talk about, links will be in the description below at the bottom if you wanted to learn more about it. And speaking about learning more about stuff, next up we're talking about a game that is going to give you the opportunity potentially to learn more about it. And that is a fighting game I'm excited about here, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. And they have just announced a public beta between February 20th to the 24th. It seems that the open beta test is going to be available for pretty much every single platform the game is launching on. PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, we're still getting brand new mainstream PS4 games in 2025. The Xbox Series X and S, and Steam. And they say no PS Plus or Xbox Game Pass subscription required. Based on the playable modes, it seems they're really testing out the online features, because online ranked match, casual match, and room match will be available, and just the tutorial for offline, so no arcade mode or anything like that. There will be 8 characters available to play. And on top of that here, save data will not carry over to the full release. So if you grind in the beta with hopes of having a head start in the full release of the game, you're going to be let down. And speaking about down, next up we're talking about physical video game sales in the US. And it seems that based on some analysis, year over year, physical game sales in the US are down. This should surprise absolutely no one. I mean, with it, I would say an all-digital future, considering we're getting consoles now that are digital only. Physical game sales on the decline seems completely normal. Matt Piscatella says spending on physical video game software in the US has been cut in more than half since 2021. That is a very steep and very quick decline, and is now more than 85% below its 2008 peak. Now, 2008 was, 17 years ago? It's crazy how time flies. But anyways, here, I am not surprised to see these numbers. Let me know your thoughts about that one in the comments below. He does say we'll see if the Switch 2 can help reverse this trend in 2025. If I was a betting person, and I'm not, I would say probably slow and not reverse. And speaking about stuff on the decline, next up we're talking about EA, specifically their market value. Now, in a previous video, we talked about how EA said that Dragon Age The Veilguard and FC25 were underperforming. And it seemed EA had a lot higher expectations for those games, and as a result lowered some forecasts for the year. Anyways, as a result, it's being reported that EA shares declined by more than 16%, which results in a $6 billion loss in market value. Now, that's just on paper. That's not necessarily overall. I mean, the company could bounce back with some more positive news. Stocks seem to be pretty darn volatile. But it just goes to show how an announcement like that affects overall stock value and, well, company value. And speaking about value, next up we're talking about arguably one of the most valuable PS1 emulators out there, and that is Duckstation. And Duckstation just got another brand new update. So the latest rolling release for Duckstation has a whole bunch of fixes, a whole bunch of tweaks, and a whole bunch of updates. This one is pretty big. Stenzex seems to have been very busy recently, and taking a look here, there's a bunch of new things that have been added for UI and even more. So under full screen UI, they've added set cover image to game list and show game icons in game list. And on top of that, here under GPU, they say fill in unused and padded area in overlays. And speaking about unused area, next up here, we're talking about arguably a really good use for AI. Now, this is not perfect and will be personal preference here, but I think this is a good use of AI to make things easy for the average person. Someone had a breakthrough with 20:9 PS2 game patches thanks to AI. So the person who posted this says, I don't know why I did not think of that before, but asking ChatGPT to modify the 16:9 patch for me worked, even at a complicated one. Based on the scripting here, it does seem that whoever is trying to do this will need to know a little bit about widescreen patches. Will they have to be perfect at it? Absolutely not. That's why ChatGPT is there. Is the output going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But I mean, at the same time, if you're just using this for yourself and not trying to pass it off as a perfect widescreen patch, then it should be absolutely fine. I mean, taking a look, you can see there are a few minor issues when compared with the original, but I mean, at the exact same time here, this to me is absolutely playable and, well, it seems absolutely fine if you're happy with it. And speaking about patches and ROMs, next up we're talking about oxyROMon, which is a Rusty ROM organizer. It's a CLI ROM organizer written in Rust. CLI stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or command line interface, depending on how you wanted to interpret that. So at the time of filming, version 0.20.2 is the latest update. And there's a bunch of fixes here. They've added a new wanted game state, and they've fixed several issues affecting the import of MAME DATs. And they've also fixed parsing archives containing files with equal signs in their names. And speaking about ROMs and retro stuff, next up we're talking about a company that doesn't want to be considered a retro gaming company. However, stuff they do kind of says the opposite. We're talking about Sega, and it turns out that the Sega Forever accounts and Discord servers, which were silent since 2023, received brand new branding. So if you're a fan of Sega Forever, this may be some very good news, because a lot of people are thinking now that the program will be relaunched this year. Who knows, but at the same time here, why would you put up new branding if you weren't planning to do anything at all with it? It wouldn't make any sense. You just let it die and forget about it. But not Sega, because it's forever. And continuing to talk about retro, next up here we're switching from Sega to Nintendo 64-ish, kind of. It's in the style of the N64, and it's a brand new game headed to Steam. It's an indie game called Merchant 64, where you play as a traveling merchant. Merchant 64 is available to be wishlisted on Steam, and it says it's releasing in March 2025. The game seems to be a cozy game if you're a fan of buying stuff at a lower price and selling it for a higher price. I guess if you're a fan of math and a fan of cozy games, this may be up your alley, especially if you like the N64 aesthetic. And speaking about stuff launching, next up we're talking about The Simpsons Tapped Out. Now, if you're a fan of this game, if you played it, you will know that the servers have been shut off and the game has effectively been ended or killed. And we talked about this one in previous videos. However, it didn't take people long at all to relaunch servers for the game. So Team TSTO has announced a private server for Simpsons Tapped Out. With the Simpsons Tapped Out set to shut down in January 2025, we're excited to announce that Team TSTO is building a private server to keep Springfield alive. You'll be able to continue building and playing the game with no in-app purchases and fan-driven updates. So if you are a fan of the game, this may be some extremely exciting news for you. And speaking about exciting stuff, next up we're talking about pixels, or rather subpixels. This is Subpixel Snake, the web's smallest game. And the person playing it is playing it through a microscope. It uses subpixels. I'm not joking with you. The entire concept is absolutely crazy and open source. If you are curious about learning more about this one, Patrick's YouTube video is just over 5 minutes long, and I do recommend checking it out. You'll learn a whole lot about pixels, the composition of them, and even the Subpixel Snake. Like, this is absolutely crazy stuff to me. Super cool and super interesting. Is it practical? Heck no. But I mean, at the same time here, it's awesome. And speaking about practical and awesome, next up we're talking about Ayaneo, the Ayaneo 3. Now, we had talked about this one in the past with Ayaneo's concept here of swappable joysticks and D-pads and buttons. And now it has come to life, and here is the announcement video for it, or the release video for it. And if you take a look, everything here looks really, really cool, except for the price. I think this may be unobtainable for a lot of people. or it just won't make a lot of sense for a lot of people. Now, I'm not downplaying the Ayaneo 3 here. I think this is a really cool concept. I think it's very innovative, and I love the modularity aspect. I think a lot of people will pay attention to this and possibly incorporate it in some way, shape, or form moving forward. Who knows about that, but it is powered by fairly powerful CPUs. AMD Ryzen i9 HX370 and the AMD Ryzen 7 8840U in the other version of this. And we've talked about all of this stuff in previous videos. However, I don't think we've talked about the price of the Ayaneo 3 yet, and it may come as a shock to you, or may not if you're very familiar with the gaming handheld scene. Anyways, the absolute base model is priced at $705 US. That is for the 8840U with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. And if you wanted something with the higher end chip in it and possibly more storage, the 8840U with 64 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage will set you back $1,200. And the AI Ryzen 9 here that's still the 8840U at $1,209. The Ryzen 9 here is $1,309 with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. So $1,300, and that is off. That's cheaper than retail. So based on their image, it seems that full retail without the early bird price is going to be $1,500. At that price, I am not interested at all. But at the same time, I mean, maybe you can justify it based on the hardware, the modularity of it all, as well as what they're offering here. Let me know your thoughts about that one in the comments below. Would you be interested in one of these at $1,500? But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. She is upstairs absolutely sprawled and passed out, and I didn't want to bother her. She looks very cozy. For those who may not be familiar with Rosie, she makes it into videos when she wants. If she's down here while I'm filming and wanting attention, I pick her up and, well, she's on camera. And that's the only time she makes a camera appearance. I don't go searching her out. I don't go bothering her, because why should I? She just celebrated her 14th birthday. She is an old girl, and I just like to leave her alone so she enjoys life. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about today in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.